Good evening, everyone. A pleasant good night to Jamaicans, all at home and abroad. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight, we have election updates. The day has come. Northeast St. Ann by-election. And we are here to discuss the results as they come in. I'm joined by Mr. Joseph Patterson, President of the UIC, and Mr. Winston Wright, UIC member and candidate. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening, Brother Nelson. Good evening, Mr. President. Please, let me apologize. There is loud music being played by my neighbor. I hope it doesn't bleed over.
No worries, Mr. Wright. Mr. Patterson, I think you were muted just now.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Wright. Thanks for having me on again.
No worries. So looking forward to a very vibrant discussion and analysis today. I think we could start with some numbers. It was a relatively low voter turnout. And this is something that we can think about. Let's look at a couple of numbers. The report was that at 11 a.m. this morning, the voter turnout was at 5.12%. At 3 p.m., it was at 9.34%. In comparison to the same time in the year 2020, when a similar election was held, it was at 28.81. So out of 43,827 registered voters, we're looking at just under 4,000 people voting. Wow. So in comparison to 2020, which would have worked out to be about 12,700. So early on, I heard Mr. Samuda.
Sorry, let me get the numbers again. You said
yes.
You said in 2020 there how many voted?
Yeah, so at 3 p.m. today it was 9.34%. The voter turnout was at 9.34%.
9.34%.
In comparison to 2020, at the same time, about 3 p.m., it was about 28.81%.
28.81%. Okay.
So we're looking at just under 4,000 turnout, about an hour and a half or 2 hours before polls would have closed. So Mr. Samuda early on was blaming it on obviously the PNP being a no-show, as well as the history of the by-election.
But how can he say that it's well, I mean, he can say it, but I mean, think about it. He says he's blaming the PNP to be a no-show, but then he was the same one that told us that the independent candidate Anderson was actually the PNP candidate. That's what he said on the campaign trail. He told the people of St. Ann that they must make sure they come out and don't take anything for granted, because Mr. Anderson is the PNP undercover candidate. And he deliberately avoided mentioning the UIC at all. In fact, him and the Prime Minister behaved as though the UIC didn't exist. They never even acknowledged. They just said the independent candidate, and that he's a PNP. And so he's calling out his people. So I guess his people never listened to him.
No, I never did.
So all those the mass, remember they show us this massive crowd, you know. They show us a massive crowd and said that that you know, here this is a crowd they show us. This is that big crowd they show us.
Yes, man.
They say this is how powerful they're going to be on election day. And we saw, whoops, I don't know what happened there, but we saw where they were marching all these people through the...
In this episode of The Big Story, the constituency of St. Ann Northeastern came alive.
So Mr. Nelson, I mean, they're a fraud, man. They were defrauding the people by pretending as though they have a large contingent of voters.
Well, this is normal reactions from these seasoned politicians. You know, they use these type of rhetoric. It's kind of like a strategy to drum up the beat.
If I can interject, Mr. Nelson.
Yes, Mr. Wright.
Firstly, am I being heard over the music across the
man, you're
community.
loud and clear.
Wonderful. While it is normal, it doesn't make it right. It's a parlor trick, a cheap trick, because they pretended, because they know that they can sway voters to say, oh well, they have action, so let me go along with this group. All right, but
Exactly.
what they do is not what the UIC does. All right, we won't spend money that was donated by our hardworking members to bus people into a constituency or a community and pretend that they're there to vote and walk the community, feed them for the day, bribe them for the day, and then take them back home. We would rather use a constructive method like we tried to do in this by-election, because the UIC, as I remember it, and the president can correct me, tried to have a debate. Well, we did have a debate. The other candidate was, well, the other candidates were no shows, but we tried to present our candidate to the community so our community can vet our candidate properly, instead of pretending, instead of putting on a dog and pony show, forgive the expression, to fool.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Wright. We have some results coming in, but go ahead.
All right, you can go to the result. That was it from me.
Can you tell me where can we find it so I can show it on screen? Where is it? Which
Well, right now I'm basing the feed off the Jamaica Observer.
Can you send me the link?
Yes.
Just WhatsApp me the link and let me put it on screen for
yes,
for viewers to see what's going on here.
Yes, for sure.
All right, you sent it?
Yes, I sent it to you.
Here we go. I think I see it here.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring it up on screen
Yes.
right now, and let's take a look at that. This is very interesting, Mr. Mr. Nelson. Let me bring this up right now for our viewers. For our viewers to see. Hold on. Coming. Where are we here? 1 second. This is very, very interesting. Very interesting. All right, here we go. JLP Samuda. Okay. All right, are you seeing that?
Yes.
All right. Go ahead with your
Yeah, it's pretty much there. Boy. It's pretty much there on screen. This is a preliminary count. And
well, I'm looking at the ECJ preliminary feed, and I'm seeing between polling stations 1A and 3B. So that would be exchange all age by 2, by 3, by 4, by 5, by 6. So all of this is in the exchange. All of these polling stations are in the exchange all age. There were no vote casted across all three candidates.
So I'm thinking that this is preliminary. They are from a preliminary perspective.
Yes, it is preliminary.
Confirming the win for Samuda. Obviously, we see from the fact that he's at 4,000 and 4,000 plus. And Anderson 222 and Chase Neal at 30. So this confirms the low voter turnout for sure. But your response to this preliminary count, gentlemen?
Yeah. So first of all, you can Mr. Samuda has won with 11% of the entire voting population. So he has received 11% of the entire voting population, 4,838 votes after a massive showing in the streets and having millions of dollars spent. I wonder how much it is, the cost per vote. If they gave out roughly $10,000 to people on the streets, which is not inconceivable, times 4,838, they would have spent about $48 million buying those votes. We know that Mr. Chase Neal didn't buy any votes. He didn't have any money to spend on the ground. to do anything. Not even to have gatherings or whatever. He didn't pay anybody to go to the polling station. He didn't pay any indoor agents or any outdoor agents at all. He didn't do anything because he didn't have any money. So, congrats to Mr. Neal for representing us in the Northeast St. Ann constituency and for doing so with courage. I'm really proud of him. Hats off to you, Mr. Neal, for the great effort that you put out. But shame on the JLP for only amassing 11% of the entire voting population with all that money that they spent and all that fanfare and show that they demonstrated. This is all they were able to accomplish with all the vote buying that there is.
I see Angela in the comment section saying no way that amount of people voted. No, Angela 48349. No, whether that be the case or not, there's something I want to point out. Whether or not that amount of people voted or not. Now, if you look at past elections, you'd have realized that this is around the amount of votes. Whether the GLP would win a by-election or the PNP would win a by-election, or sometimes even a constituent election. It's usually this at this number. So what does that say? That is basically saying that they have only maintained a base.
Mm-hmm.
So technically speaking, the GLP Samuda never made any real traction or real ground or real gain on the ground. Because if you really think about it, and I guess that's why the rhetoric that we were talking about early on in terms of Samuda making the excuses. So it's just a cover to show that the GLP really is in trouble. And no one knows what will be the result when a general election is held next year. I would believe that the GLP and Mr. Samuda, they're not safe in that seat. So that's something that they must observe from this by-election, because as you said, Mr. Patterson, with all of the fanfare and the crowd and so forth, this number is just representing a base voting. So if other parties, including the UIC, of course, gain grounds for the next election, then I would be concerned if I was Mr. Samuda. Your thoughts on that?
I want to point out something here to you. If you look carefully on this observer presentation, do you notice anything funny about it? Look closely. Mr. Wright, do you see anything funny about this presentation? Look very close. Look at everything on this presentation.
I'm on a smaller screen, so.
Small screen.
Well, what I definitely notice is that I know I wear glasses, but which really should magnify the situation. But I see that independent candidate, I see the GLP. I can't make out the UIC.
Exactly.
This deal is concerned.
They have made sure to put yellow up there, not blue, They put yellow up there, and then they put the word UIC in white, knowing that the yellow and white is going to clash, and you're not going to be able to see that it's UIC. All throughout this election, they have done everything. The media, they have done every single thing they can to downplay, hide, push aside, marginalize, defame, belittle, neuter the UIC. Every effort has been made for the last several years to ensure that the people, if at all, that's the reason why we entered this race. We wanted to make sure and see it very clear. Listen to all the news items, and you're going to see that every attempt is made to undermine the UIC, to make sure that name doesn't get broadcasted, that the people don't get used to it, that they don't become attuned to it, or if they hear it, it's negative or hard and difficult. Did you notice that?
Gentlemen, let me give you one better than that.
Yes.
If you go to Wikipedia right now, you will see Matthew Samuda listed as a member of parliament.
Yes. Before the election.
Before the election results are official. I haven't looked before. I'm looking now. So they have him listed as the MP. But let's get into the meat or the crux of this. I agree with you, Mr. President, that Brother Neil deserves strong congratulations for standing up. And here's the history of what is happening. Somehow, the person who won the election previously, Marsha Smith, somehow decided to resign. I don't know the circumstance or the circumstances under which he decided to resign, but I know that a gentleman that works in the office of the Prime Minister, one of those that the Prime Minister holds to his bosom, is now being posited to replace her in that constituency. There seemed to also be a gentleman's agreement that was in place between the JLP and the PNP, where the PNP would not officially contest the seat, so to speak, because in the quote-unquote independent candidate is being linked to the PNP, all right? And the JLP, therefore, would have their candidate nominated, and some would have said that much. That is because of the antics of the PNP why there's an election today. Because he had very well expected to be nominated, and being the only nominee, he would have then become the candidate. But because Brother Neil stood up and said, no, I'm going to get nominated in this constituency, so that way there is an election, so the people have a choice, then he had to show up and, of course, carry out their usual political antics. The bussing in of people and the supposed vote buying, etc. Supposed. So, what we have is the UIC once again standing on principle and showing that what the UIC has been saying, that both colonial parties are colluding to the ruin of the Jamaican people, is factual. So, Brother Neil, congrats for showing that. And some would have said it with his own mouth. They can go back to the TVJ interview where he said it's because of the PNP strictly why there is an election today. But no, it's not because of the PNP trickery, it's because the UIC stood up to stop their unauthorized transfer of power. That's why there is an election today. Now, let's look at the results. I'm looking at the ECJ preliminary results, and I'm seeing a very low voter turnout, double digits, but nobody breaking the 100. As a matter of fact, Samuda, who is the highest polling candidate, has not gotten 100 votes in any polling station. The highest he has gotten is 69. Okay, so that's the highest vote in any polling station. As a matter of fact, he got 69 out of 70, with a total of 450 registered voters in that polling station. So 69 out of 450, Mr. President, what percentage is that? You know, you're quicker on the maths than me. So the point.
You're muted, Mr. Potts.
Sorry, go ahead, Miss. Reading something on the sidebar. Yeah.
Okay. So with 69 out of 450 votes, it shows that the JLP is not as favored as they would project. Neither is the PNP, since the quote-unquote independent candidate is linked to the PNP. Now, you would ask the question, then what has happened to our UIC candidate? Brother Neil entered the race at the last minute, the very last minute. That's thing number one. Thing number two, he has not worked as extensively in the constituency as some would have claimed to have done, and the other candidate who is from the area. Okay, so the UIC entered as a point of academic to uphold the democratic principles of this country. But the JLP, as much as their PR machinery would like to spin this, is hemorrhaging votes in a massive amount. Now, what this should say to persons sitting on the sidelines and wondering what is next, you have a choice. The UIC is still a registered political party, organized and ready to represent you. If you don't know who your candidate is in your division or in your constituency, reach out to us. We will share that information with you. But our candidates, the ones we have so far, they are ready, like myself, and eager to represent you. Yes, we are short on funds, so we are not visible in the community, but you have persons like myself who have projects that are continuing to run, and we're hoping that the voters will break the mental shackles that they have to believe that only one of the two parties can represent them. But here's the trick that they are playing. They are minimizing the UIC's activities, referring to the UIC as a minor party or as an independent party. The UIC is an organized, registered third party. Over to you, Mr. President.
Can I just,
thank
can I,
you.
can
Yeah,
I just
go
say
ahead.
something? Okay, go ahead, Mr. President.
No, you go ahead, Mr. Nelson. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no. Well, I just want to emphasize some of the points that you made, Mr. Wright, because as I mentioned early on, I want to make it clear that the GLP didn't have a victory tonight. They didn't have a victory today. They might have statistically won the by-election, but as I mentioned early on, these figures are representative of base votes. So you want to look at it. Shaini Robinson, she had the constituency for about a little bit under 20 years or something like that. Now, perhaps they want to make excuse about Marsha performing poorly as a candidate, as an MP in the area, but at the same time, Robinson was hailed as a very effective, according to them, other people would disagree, effective member of parliament. However, for such a long-standing hold on the constituency, the Jamaica Labour Party having such a long-standing hold on the constituency, I really believe the numbers for the GLP should have been a little bit better today. Because as I said, those numbers represent base vote. So this is technically speaking, not a victory for the Jamaica Labour Party. And any snoozing, they're going to feel it when the election comes next year. So I wouldn't be all confident.
Brother Nelson, considering what is happening, and I hope people who are watching will tune into our next live that focuses on the Prime Minister's, let me not call them trials and tribulation, but his chickens coming home to roost. I hope viewers tune in for that and invite their friends and their neighbors and bring popcorn. Because they will be educated as to what is happening. So will we make it to next year with what is hanging over the Prime Minister's head and the other 7 that is yet to be named?
Yeah, I think we shouldn't underestimate the power of the JLP and the PNP machinery and money, right? I mean, Jamaica has now developed a history of low voter turnouts. In the last several elections, we have seen where the voter turnout is now around, 29% to 37% in a general and local government election. Local government elections normally have lower turnouts than general, and that's because the people oftentimes see the MPs as being more significant than the councillors, and rightly so, because that's the way the system is set up. This election was a by-election, and many persons do not take by-elections very seriously, especially, and the truth is, Matthew Samuda is correct. If the PNP were participating in this election fully, not with an independent who is a member of the PNP or whatever, but fully participating, then you would have seen a greater turnout on both sides, in order to compete for the seat. The Jamaican voter is very savvy, as much as, even though they are, we have some issues, they're savvy, and the JLP supporters did not feel as though they had any risk of losing the seat. And so many of them take the money and stay home. So whether it's $5,000 or $10,000 or, whatever they got, they took it, and they just say, yeah, man, Matthew, have it in the bag. And yeah, sorry?
Mr. President, we don't disagree often.
Yes.
But I'm going to disagree with you tonight.
Yeah, that's fine. But let me finish developing my thought.
The JLP supporters, they're not clairvoyant. Right? Neither is the JLP leadership. They might be in tune, but not clairvoyant. Now, their instructions from their candidate was, let's bring the numbers out because the PNP is playing games. They have an undercover agent that is here to rip off the votes.
Right.
And guess what? The people still didn't turn up. Neither for the
Right.
GLP or the
And
PNP.
I can assure you, come the general election, they're going to show up. The only question will be which one shows up more, which of the two, whether it's going to be the PNP base being more fired up, and Mark Golding has a problem there because, he's still not yet fully cemented in the hearts and minds of many of the PNP supporters. He has better support now than he previously had, but it's very tenuous. The JLP, on the other hand, their members, except for those who are now weaning themselves away from the party, they still have a vested interest in seeing their party return to power. But their base is smaller than the PNP. The JLP normally wins when the PNP base stays home. When the PNP is turned off from their party, like we see here in Northeast St. Elizabeth, where I am, they have gone from winning with Raymond Price with 9,000 votes down to winning with Redmond with only 7,000 plus votes, down to losing in the last election and getting only about 6,000 plus votes. So you're seeing a decline in PNP votes over the years, while the JLP has not really been gaining so much. They have been holding their base and occasionally getting a little bit of shift in the more independent-minded persons who still engage in voting. So what's going to happen now? The more the Prime Minister becomes engaged and embroiled in this corruption scandal that is building momentum each and every day, that will turn off some of his soft support and will energize PNP supporters. Now remember, that's still just within the base of the two colonial parties. There's a large chunk of Jamaicans now who have either completely turned away from the system, and a small slice of that which remain independent thinkers that may very well show up in the election for one or the other. And they'll be voting in their minds strategically. They'll be fed such stories as, okay, UIC can't win. I don't want Andrew back in there, so I'm going to vote PNP instead. I don't really like Mark Golding or whatever, but I'm going to go on. So you have strategic voters like that, people who are going to make that very foolish assumption because they do not want Andrew to win. They hate him now. And by the way, some of these people were championing him a few years ago. They were really that he's the best thing since sliced bread. And today now they're seeing that he's not such a good sliced bread after all. So let's be. So I don't want us to become too unaware of the reality. So here's the reality now, Mr. Nelson. What the UIC have to do, we have to convince more bright people like Mr. Wright and Mr. Neal and yourself and others to stand up and run for office. Right now, the UIC has a huge deficit of candidates because many bright, intelligent people who could run don't feel confident that a third party have any hope because they've been fed this lie over and over again, this narrative over and over again that third parties cannot win. So the more you believe a lie, it becomes true for you, right? And so what we have to do, we as a UIC have to step up our game in terms of finding another gear of engaging Jamaicans so that they can have the confidence to step up and step out so we can have 30, 40, 50, 60 candidates lined up. And then secondarily, all of us have to get better at convincing Jamaicans that they need to own the party. If we continue to depend on the two colonial parties who are not owned by us, the people of Jamaica, but are owned by the PSOJ oligarchs and owned by foreign interests, then we're going to continue to lose. So we, the UIC, have to find more effective ways, myself included, to communicate with the people and help them to understand that their $1,000 a month or 10 US a month, taking out a membership in the UIC and allowing us to have funds to support our candidates is what is going to make the difference. So I'm hoping coming out of this, the Jamaican people will fully understand, listen, if we want change, we're going to have to pay for it. I hate to say this, but Andrew was right. He said you get what you pay for. And the PSOJ, they have been paying for the PNP and JLP so that they can control our government. So they get that. They get to control our government. We, the people, have been tricked into thinking we should not donate to our political party. We should not get involved financially in owning our political party. And because of that, we are allowing ourselves to be trapped between choosing between black dog and white monkey every 4 to 5 years.
Mr. President, I think you made some very good points. I know. I just want to read something here, a quote from Hillary Clinton, and in agreeing with you, the expectation upon politicians to be entertaining or outrageous in a social media age makes it harder to do the hard, boring work of actually getting things done. And she also reiterated the point about the communication factor being very important. So I agree with you in terms of that for the UIC. But I also just want to call out some of the commenters here. Samantha Robinson Madden and Sonia Ellis. Nice to see you representing your Jamaica Labour Party. But my question is, your party just won the by-election. Why are you here on a UIC platform talking about the Jamaica Labour Party? I would think you would be out celebrating. You mentioned that you say you three out there, you're calling upon us. You're saying Andrew, I'm mad out. I agree with you. I think he is madding out. I think there's a lot of problems in the country that is being caused by the Prime Minister's leadership. So I agree with you, Samantha Robinson Madden. Andrew is madding out. And you mentioned that Andrew must win back the next election. This type of confidence with the situation and the crisis and the scandals that the Prime Minister is going on with, I think you want to be cautious, Samantha Robinson, about making such comments, because it doesn't look good on Jamaica. We have to be more reflective on the situations, the sad situations that's happening with the Prime Minister. This is something that all Jamaicans, whether you're green, whether you're orange, or whether you are pretty blue like the UIC, whatever it is, all of us, this is all of our problems. And these are serious issues. And so this is the political trickery and entertainment that leaders worldwide are talking about. So we have to become better thinking Jamaicans. Like Mr. Patterson says, our communication needs to become better. So I just wanted to address you, Samantha Robinson. And Sonia Ellis, I know you're a regular. I'm not sure what color you are, but listen, we have to become more better at the reason politics in Jamaica. Go ahead, Mr. Red.
I have a healthy grin on, and I'm sorry the audience can't see me because I'm out and about, so I'm not at my best. I promise I'll be in camera next time. But it's beautiful to see other affiliated members of the public joining a UIC live. Okay, I would think that it lends credence to the kind of information we are sharing. I would personally like to invite these supporters of the JLP and the Prime Minister by extension to have a discussion with myself, a discussion as to why they have this great confidence in the Prime Minister and his leadership. Now, let's piggyback on your words of caution to the audience in terms of their support and the need for us to evolve as a voting bloc and recognize, one, as the president said, that we pay for what we want, and two, that we have to know reason beyond personality and party and look at policies, because it's policies why I'm affiliated with the UIC. Will they be able to tell the Jamaican people, based on information that is currently circulating in official spheres, that this honorable Prime Minister, if I can call him that, is doing the people justice? Because if he's the holder of 28 bank accounts, which not even a corporation has that amount, as is alleged, and if he is the owner of 4+ businesses and 1 charity that was being run at the height of the pandemic to great success, where there are millions of dollars comparable to the budget of a department of government moving through those businesses, then how is he focused on the people? And while he's boasting that Jamaica is the best Caribbean island. There's a lot of people in Barbados where the cost of living is way lower. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, where their currency is stronger against the US dollar and the euro and the pound, and other Caribbean countries that are enjoying better standard of living and healthcare and education because they're acing CSEC, etc. Can they definitively say that we are getting the best of our leaders? Or are they there for selfish reasons only? So we'd like to have that discussion. I would like to have that discussion with these ladies and any other supporter on a whole who believes that the Jamaican people are getting the best of governance under the present system. Because right now, we're seeing several things. We're seeing where the new constitution that is supposed to cement our independence, the lie that we've been told, that I've been hearing ever since I was a kid, and I'm an old goat now, that we're independent. They're finally admitting that that's not true, and nobody has recognized that lie. And that new constitution, which is now being crafted to further concretize power in the hand of one person, nobody is seeing that as an alarm. So I need us as a voting bloc. I need those who come to the UIC forum to take away this info and share it. This is not propaganda. This isn't hype. We send you to credible sources when we present these information so you can digest it and look at it, not just for you, but in the interest of the next generation. When I vote, when I talk, when I align, it's because I'm looking at the future of my kids. I think about their healthcare, I think about their education, I think about their financial future. And I choose the UIC. Over to you, Mr. Dales.
And this is where Mr. Patterson's comment on the communication becomes critical. There's a popular saying: strong convictions precedes great action. So whether the PNP or the JLP is listening, or Samantha or Sonia Ellis or whomever is listening to what the UIC is saying, and even if they are attempting to try to put it into practice, I want to say to the Jamaican people that this is the point that we're making. This is the issue. We have a political stench, a political partisanship, tribalistic politics, colonial politics, age-old, no serious issue, but banga banga entertainment. The same thing as I quoted Hillary Clinton saying. We have these are the issues that we have, and the truth is, political parties such as the United Independence Congress, founded by Mr. Joseph Patterson. This is a moment in history that we're missing. This is a revolution where only the strongly convicted can enact upon society. The change that the UIC can bring to Jamaica, I'm saying to everyone, the Jamaica Labour Party cannot bring that change. The People's National Party cannot bring that change. It is going to be the same old same every time. And oftentimes people such as the persons I mentioned who are commenting, they're the ones who reinforce the status quo of keeping Jamaica down. As I mentioned in the last slide, can you imagine the impact it would have for Jamaica and the status of Jamaica and the respect from a global perspective that people would have for Jamaica if the UIC's agenda and the UIC's convictions, may I say, is embraced by more of us, the power that we would gain as a nation. Back to you, gentlemen.
But
one second, Mr. Wright. I just want to bring us back to the election at hand. Mr. Neil got 30 votes, and I really want to join with one of our strongest supporters, Miss Annalisa Gillespie, in congratulating not only Mr. Neil, but also those 30 persons who turned out. Mr. Neil didn't have a vote in the constituency because he's not registered to vote there. So the 30 votes he got were 30 people who lived in the constituency. And those 30 people who voted, they did not receive 1 cent transportation, food, or any form of inducement to vote for Mr. Neal. So he got pure committed vote. Persons who truly got up and went to the polling station and said, I want to vote for change in my country and in this constituency. And so tonight I want us to applaud, congratulate, and heap a lot of praise and honor on those 30 persons who voted for Mr. Neal without any form of inducement whatsoever. Mr. Neal did not go through with a motorcade. He couldn't afford one. Mr. Neal was not able to put on even one street gathering because when he applied for permits to do so, he received no permission to do so. Mr. Neal did not have the benefit of the news media championing his name in a positive way at all. Mr. Neal was operating on zero budget to get this done. You're correct, Miss Janet. Pure organic votes. That's what Mr. Neal got. Now, our goal now must be to find a way to reach the 70% or the 63% of Jamaicans who need to come out and vote organically without any inducement. In my involvement here in the electoral process, I realize more and more Jamaicans who vote, who participate, are doing so for some kind of inducement. You have to give them something. That's the mindset, that's the culture that has been created by these two parties over their 80 years. And Mr. Nelson, we shouldn't allow these things to just fly by. We need to educate the Jamaican people to understand what has been done to them. What has been done to you, my fellow Jamaican? You have been brought to the low position of wanting to be paid to go out and vote. So what are you voting for? Are you voting for policies that are going to improve your community and your country? Are you voting for a government that is going to treat all of us equally? Are you voting for a safe Jamaica, for a clean Jamaica, for an orderly Jamaica, for a Jamaica where all of us can live, earn, and retire with dignity? Or are you voting because you were given some form of handout, which will last only for a moment, and then you're going to live for the next 4 to 5 years and wait for the next handout inducement to go out and vote? Shame on you. If that is what you have allowed these two parties to do to you, I encourage you, please do away with that mindset. Get up and stand up and say, no, I will not sell my vote again, nor will I sit down at home and fail to go out to vote for the future of my country. I am going to get up and stand up and say, I want my rights to be protected. And the UIC is the only political movement in Jamaica that is 100% committed to protecting my rights and freedom, that is 100% committed to equal opportunity, equal justice, and equal rights for all Jamaicans. Because if we don't do that, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Wright, if we do not convince the Jamaican people to rise up in the ways that I'm speaking, here's what's going to happen. At the next election, many Jamaicans will be sitting down on the side, waiting and watching to see how did the election go, who win, not realizing that they're about to lose. Because every election which is won by the two colonial parties is an election lost by the people of Jamaica. Every election, 70% of us voted by abstaining against those two parties, but they still control our government. They control our economy. They are, look at it. Did you hear any major alarm in the nation? Did you see a mass riot when the results came out and said 82% of our students failed in school? Did you see a mass riot? Did you see any major uproar by the parents? Did you see parent-teachers meetings being called and parents are going to school angry and concerned about the conditions of the school and the learning achievements of it? No. Why? Because they have dumbed us down to the point where we don't even care about our education anymore. Do you see any mass demonstration against the dilapidated hospitals and clinics that we have across the country? No. We're so deprived of our mental faculties that all we go and fight for is a road. Sometimes we block some road because it's so bad. We're so tired of the bad road. I watch mine out here in my community here, day after day, it's eroding away. With each rainfall, more and more of the road is washing away. But we're stuck there. We're stuck at roads, we're stuck at water, and we're stuck at street lights and garbage collection. We can't move from this up after 80 years of these two parties. So I am saying, hats off to the 30 Jamaicans, the 30 Jamaicans in St. Ann. The 30 of you are my heroes tonight because you got up without 1 ounce of inducement, no promises from Mr. Neil to give you something if you go out and vote, no handouts for you to go out and vote, no curry goat for you to go out and vote, no big street gathering for you to go out and vote. You got up out of your house, took time away from your work, and you walked out there and dipped your hand in that finger and you marked your X beside the handshake because you want a new Jamaica. You want new leadership for Jamaica. You want a new system for Jamaica. And because of that, you got up and you went out and you voted for Jamaica today. And so the other 4,000 vote don't mean nothing. The other 220 something vote don't mean nothing because they continue to vote for a continuation of what you have suffered from for the last 80 years or however long you have lived in this country. I am so very proud of you tonight. And I want everyone in St. Ann to know that you are the hero of tonight because you voted for no handouts at all. You voted from the heart. You voted from conviction. You voted for a new and better Jamaica.
Spoken like a true leader, Mr. Patterson. Thank you for that. And you're right. Emphasis needs to be placed on those 30 voters. And in reality, those 30 votes will continue to multiply as the UIC continue to do its work. I want to mention something. Dr. Ryan Simpson, the caretaker for the PNP in the Northeast St. Ann region, and his group. I just want to use something that you guys have said, and you've said that if you're a woman and someone continues to keep slapping you in your face, if a man continues to keep slapping you in your face every day, if you would continue to tolerate it and to take it, and that's kind of the situation that we're facing when people come and diehard supporters of these political. My problem though with the PNP is that they're the same thing. So it's exchange. If it's not the GLP, it's the PNP, and the same thing keeps going on and on and on and on. And that is why it is very powerful and very potent, important that the UIC will forever remain very important. Not to give people ideas, because as I mentioned before, it takes convictions to put these into action. So I don't know if you gentlemen disagree with me, but I kind of would take offense of anyone classifying the UIC as a third party or giving ideas or solely giving ideas. No, the UIC is here to change Jamaica. But just one comment on the idea of Mr. Neil, the integrity of the honor of Mr. Neil, not even living in the constituency. There were several news reports that Mr. Kamu that doesn't live in the constituency either. He gave an address that is an address of a GLP of 2 million. He doesn't live there. In fact, the apartment that he has in St. Ann is in Northwest St. Ann, not Northeast. So these are the type of corruption. There's a little bit of a feedback there, Mr. Right? I don't know if it's you.
Mr. Nelson, you know what is happening here? The UIC has never been elected, but we have influenced the government of Jamaica in so many ways. It's because of us why only 22% of Jamaicans were injected with the thing they wanted to inject people with. But if the UIC wasn't there, 90 to 100% of us would have been injected. But the UIC stood up and said no. If the UIC wasn't there, you wouldn't hear them now focusing on water harvesting and renewable energy the way that they are pushing it now, looking at bringing in a youth employment solution program. All of our ideas. Now you hear Mr. Golin talking more now about land and ownership and you know, so a lot of our policies are influencing what you're hearing from them. But the media, which is controlled by the same PSOJ who control them, the media is helping them to hide the UIC from the public while they develop the usage of our talking points so they can nullify the UIC. And they're doing a very good job of it. It's evil, it's wrong, it's diabolical, but they're doing a very effective job at shutting down the UIC, trying their darnest best. Whether it's from outside influence or from internal influence, they've been trying to shut us down. But we have to rise to the challenge. And that means all of us, not just Joseph Patterson. Too many people sit back and they're looking for Joseph Patterson to do. I can't do it. We can do it though. We can do it. If we, the people, ever realize the power that is in our hand. Let me give you an example. If 1,000 of us in Jamaica, 1,000 of us today should get up and say, we're going to join the UIC and be a member and pay our dues every month of $1,000. That would be $1 million a month. Just 1 month alone would have ensured Mr. Neil could have put in place 180 indoor agents and 180 outdoor agents and have transportation to help some people get to the polling station today. His 30 votes would have easily turned in to 300 or 3,000 or 6,000 votes today. We could have won the election today if all that I've been saying for the last several years, we the people would just do it. We the people say, you know what? This is serious, you know. Let me take my country serious now. I know we have been taught to become mentally lazy and to just sit on our hand and wait for some miracle or some messiah to come and get it done. But suppose we just listen to this, Mr. Patterson, and decide to just do what I must say, and all the way, just come together and give a little 1,000. In this election, this appointed time, we could have had $1 million, just $1 million, to spend on Mr. Neil's campaign and ensure that he would have had the network on the ground. Because some people just need help and guidance and a little push. Some people just want to see that you're present. They just want to see a little bit of movement, which no candidate, no independent candidate can effectively move around a large constituency while he has his day job. He has to pay his rent or his mortgage. He has to pay his car payment or transportation. He has to pay for his children school fee and books and whatever. He has to put grocery on the table, pay for light bill, pay for cable bill, pay for water, and all that kind, and insurance and whatever. Let's get real, man. May I try to get us to, let's stop. I don't want this little comic view of politics where we think things just happen. So things don't happen. Politics is about having the funds to pay for the infrastructure you need. No, the PSOJ fully understand that. And that is why they make sure that every election, they give $300, $400, $500 million to these two parties, because they understand that if they don't fund them, let's say the PSOJ didn't fund the two colonial parties, what do you think would happen? For one, they couldn't spend the kind of money to buy the votes that they have done. So they would have done different things. So what would have happened? They would have had to focus now on the issues of the people, because now are the people alone going to get them re-elected. But because they're not focused on the issues of the people, when Andrew win again, what is he going to work on? He's going to make sure that in the next fiscal year, the big banks will be able to say they made $2, $3, $4 billion in profit, $8 billion in profit. The big banks. The big commercial enterprises will make their big billions. The government will still draw from us, the taxpayers, nearly $1 trillion in tax revenues. But they still will not have to give us good roads in every community. They still will not have to make sure that there's water in every pipe. They still will not have to make sure that our school is producing, that our healthcare system is functioning, and that the small man can grow his enterprise without the stress and punishment of a very inefficient and ineffective government service. They never have to do anything really for us. And that is why, Mr. Nelson, After 80 years of these two parties, listen to Mr. Samuda's speech on the campaign trail. He says, elect us and we're going to fix. I'm summarizing now, paraphrasing. I'm giving you what it really means. Elect us now after 8 years of Andrew and after 80 years of the two colonial parties. Elect us now and we're going to do the basic things that should have been done for you long ago. We are the government now, you know. Is one of Fiwi MP, one of Fiwi party members was MP in your constituency for the last 8 years, okay? But elect me now, he's saying. And when you elect me now, I am going to make sure all these things are done. How can we be so foolish as to accept that? How can we be so foolish? Even now, there are many people now rallying around and getting themselves ready to go and vote for Mark Golding and the PNP because they want to get rid of Andrew. But what are you doing? You vote out Andrew and you're voting in what? You're voting in a boss that has failed us for 18 years straight, plus Portia period of nearly 5 years. 18 plus 5 is 23 and a half years you have had of this party. And you have seen that they have failed you on everything. In fact, before that party went out of power after 18 and a half years, they made sure to wipe out the wealth of 44,000 small and medium enterprises here in Jamaica and transferred that money to a select few. We call that FinSAC. And both parties have ensured that to this day, we do not have a report after Commission of Inquiry. We do not have a report that shows us what has been done to the Jamaican people. And we're going to vote back Mark and the PNP in, Mark Golding and Peter Bunting, who was a part of that era and a part of that setup. Why we're going to vote for them? Because now Andrew has failed us. Of course he has failed us. But we have no choice because we have not given ourselves any choice. We the people have decided to allow the PSOJ to win and block the UIC from the media when we don't need the media. We don't need CVM. We don't need TVJ. What we need is for we the people to tell everybody, tell our friends and our families and our sisters and brothers and cousins and aunts, whether we're abroad or yard, we can tell everybody about the UIC. And we can bring all of them to UIC Liberty TV and let them listen and learn and understand and say, come man, join the party, man. Come join me. Make a give my $1,000 a month. Make a give my $10 US a month. And make us swell this thing from 2,000 to 3,000 to 5,000 to 500,000 Jamaicans, home and abroad. And with that means human capital and financial capital and volunteers, we now would have the power. We the people would have the power to say, we don't need you no more, because we can find other brighter Jamaicans to become health minister, finance minister, transportation minister, education minister. We can find a different set of 63 MPs. We don't have to continue to itch our hope, our desperate hope on this batch from two parties that have held us in their hands, in their claws for 80 long years, 80 long years, 8 decades. They have held us in their hands and they have squeezed everything out of us year after year after year. $1 trillion was the last budget that they were going to squeeze a few money and a few them money. When Desmond McKenzie announced today how they're going to spend $15 million on fixing up markets and a few money you're going to spend. But he must say no to induce you to go and vote. I just know he's going to go to the market and go and see that they don't have proper sanitary facilities. We know that long time. Every Jamaican know that our markets are dirty and dingy and don't have proper facilities in them. Everyone we know that. So how come him just going to say that now? And just before election now, him going to announce how much money he's going to spend. And Matthew Samuda is able to tell you how much projects he's going to go do here and there. Come on, Jamaicans. We have seen this before. We must not behave as if it's the first time we're seeing this. We see it with Buster Manty. We see it with Norman Manley. We see it with Michael Manley. We see it with Edward Seaga. We see it with PJ Patterson. We see it with Bruce Golden. We see it with Portia Simpson. We see it with you, Shearer. We see it with Donald Sangster. Come on, it's not new. 8 decades of it now, we're suffering. So I'm saying, come on, my friends. Let us take matters into our own hands. We don't have to suffer under these two colonial parties any longer. We have the capacity. We have the power right here. It's simply what, tell me, Mr. Nelson, can we not find $250 a week? Cannot all Jamaicans find $250 a week to say, I am going to join the UIC and donate 250 Jamaican dollars a week, or 1,000 a month, or $250 US a week, or 10 US a month, to make sure that the UIC has the means to buy the media that we need, put up the billboards that we need, pay for the transportation that we need, pay for the advertisements that we need, pay for the staffing that we need, open constituency office in all 63 constituencies, attract and retain and train quality MP candidates for the next election, and have that in place. So when Mr. Oldness fly the gate and ring him bell, we don't go to him like sheep to the slaughter or take another fist from the PNP. No, we can stand on our own 2 feet and say, no, we're one Jamaica, united, strong and free, and we'll not be fooled by you anymore. We will not be made to depend on you anymore while you take the leadership or take the directions of your colonial masters and the PSOJ. All I'm saying, guys, let's stop playing their form of politics. Let us now beat them at their own game by funding and owning our own party, the UIC, and show them that we, the people, are no longer under the bondage, the mental slavery of these two colonial parties.
Problem they have with the I'm going to let you in, Mr. Wright. I just want to say the problem they have with the UIC is, number one, they've never seen a leader who forms an alternative party that they have seen in you, and they are fearful of that. The UIC is not fading away. In fact, it continues to add people who are firm on their stance, as I said, conviction, and I think that's a big problem for them. But yes, of course, they can find the 250, and they are going to find the 250 because the UIC is only just beginning. Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Brother Nelson. The president has said a lot, and as usual, very pointed. I'm going to help our audience with the math on this. First thing is that during the last general election cycle, when we looked at the campaign financing report, we realized that the banks and the PSOJ by extension were the biggest contributor to the campaign machinery of the two colonial parties. And for example, I like to talk about one particular bank, NCB. While they were in negotiation with their staff, they were financing the campaigns to the maximum allowed, which is double digit in the millions. Okay? And I like to ask people, what could that money have done for their staff welfare if instead of backing both parties, because they contributed to both parties equally, instead of backing both parties, they had put that money, that $30 million, into their staff welfare program. I'm not even asking for it to go to the UIC, because they were negotiating with their staff for better wages and living conditions.
And we don't want it. And we don't want them to give it to the UIC. We want them to do what you're saying. Take care of your staff.
Exactly. That $30 million could have done a lot for their staff. Now, in the last general election, the voter turnout was 37%. The one before that, it was 48, just about 48.5%. That's a decline. And we're predicting the next general election to be even lower. Okay? Because the base, the polarized base, the die-hearted base of these two colonial parties is shrinking. And that is why you see that video from the PNP, for example, trying to appeal to a new generation, the next generation. Okay? Because they want to ensnare them in the same system. But they have a very effective way of doing it. They didn't need that video. because they're part of the mal-education of our youth. Okay? They're part of the mal-education. Our youth have failed out of school and there is no streaming, meaning they're not being channeled into productive means, but they've been left to their own idle pursuits. So they have created an education system that guarantees that our youth will be undereducated and susceptible to their suggestions that they're putting out there. They have created a healthcare system that will ensure that our infirmed and elders die off quicker and therefore leave our youth without guidance and the benefit of wisdom. All right, for those who would have lived across different administrations. Okay, so they have a very effective way of creating this cycle of tribalism and polarization, and the UIC is breaking that by injecting a different energy into the national equation and the national discourse around representation. I don't like to call it politics, and I don't like to call the UIC a party. UIC is a movement. So that is how I view it. So here's the math. This by-election tells us, or is signaling, that the general election voter turnout is going to be even lower, dismally lower. So much so that you may not be able to call this government a majority government. It is not a true representation of the people's will, right? But how can that change? If they are so low, where they're at 37% and falling, all the UIC needs to do is amplify its message. And how can we do that? Everyone here, have you liked this live already? Have you shared it to a friend as yet? I'm going to ask you to do that right now, so that this live will climb in the algorithm and reach more persons who didn't even want to subscribe because they didn't know about the UIC, and they'll see this and they'll interact with it and they'll learn from it. The next thing I'll ask you to do is donate to the UIC, because here you are, a party that you control, that you can come to our conference, not send a delegate, not go to a public session where you listen to a bunch of speeches, which are in a sense lies, but where you come and you give directions to your party as to the way forward. So you're not part of a group that is subject to the women fancy of the political and the business elite, but rather a movement that is truly representative of you and your point of view. So I'm going to ask you to donate, become a member, volunteer, refer a friend who can donate or volunteer. And with that, we keep doing it day in and day out, over and over again. So we get candidates, suitable qualified candidates, who are willing to put their principles above all else and serve their country. And I guarantee you that the results that our president speaks of, we will start seeing them. But it starts with each and every one of us. I do it. The president does it on an even more massive scale. Mr. Nelson does, Mr. Neil does, Sister Janet does, VP Powell does, and all our other vice presidents do. All our NEC members do it. Join us in charting that new way forward. Here's Brother Neil standing up for us. Thank you, Brother Nelson.
Yes, thank you, sir. Corey MBA, thank you for your comment. Corey MBA says, very good speech, Mr. Patterson. I hope others are really listening. I am and will donate again. Thank you so much, Corey MBA. And I hope indeed others are listening. And as Mr. Wright confirmed, we'll continue to donate and contribute to the UIC. Mr. Patterson, you're muted.
There's a comment on the screen. There's a comment. You saw that?
Which one?
Alvaro Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it says, Mr. Patterson, you keep being critical of the Jamaican people, but I don't see you standing up beside Chase Neil and showing your support. You need to critique your leadership too. Now, can I answer for you, Mr. President?
Sure, go right ahead, please.
At the most trying time in Jamaica's history, free thinkers were under the greatest of pressure. We face an uncertain economic future and an uncertain medical future. where apartheid that we read about that existed in South Africa and other places came to Jamaica. And I was there on that fateful day where one man brought a crowd to represent to the government, to the power of the day, to say, hey, leave our Jamaican brothers alone. Okay? I know for a fact that you suffer and continue to suffer immensely for standing up for all Jamaicans, not just Chase Neil. You have stood up with me and stood for me and by me as a candidate and a member of the UIC. And you continue to do so. Even today, you stood by Mr. Neil. So, Alvaro Hamilton, I'm not angry at you. I'm just letting you know that you are misinformed. But thank you for that critique. It allowed me to share with you how deeply connected Mr. Patterson is to the UIC, its executive, its members, and its candidates. And ask you to, instead of being on the outside, I'll invite you on the inside, where you will share in this experience so you'll be more understanding of what we plan to do, what we have been doing, and what we continue to do.
Yeah, I just want to add to that a little bit. I mean, like, not everybody is religious, but the Bible says, "Let a righteous man strike me 7 times." And we have a tendency, whenever we speak, whenever we try, I don't see it as criticism. I see it as us helping each other, because sometimes we need help. There has been no major change in any global movement or in any great needed change in society without other people speaking to other people about the urgency of what is needed and the urgency of change and the urgency of action. And that is how I see it. The UIC, through the leadership of Mr. Patterson, has been crying to the Jamaican people for the urgency of now, the urgency of change, the urgency of our efforts that are needed to change Jamaica. So we have to be critical of ourselves, of what we call criticism. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Nelson and Mr. Wright. And Kirk online, thank you for your support as well, and Director Janet Chakanowski. So the goodly gentleman, I'm assuming, Alvaro Hamilton, is asking why he didn't see me physically supporting Mr. Neil. Well, I don't know why he didn't see me, but I have been physically supporting Mr. Neil completely throughout the process. The UIC, though, is not really a party of form. We're a party of substance. We're a movement of substance. And we're a party by necessity, because, the system as it is designed now requires you to be labeled a political party to participate. But we're deeper than that, Mr. Hamilton. We are not here for the showbiz. The substance of my support is very demonstrable right across. But you need to understand something, though, about the people who operate this thing called the UIC. You might not realize, but the 2 colonial parties have been around now for more than 80 years. They have built a very solid and robust institution that results in them having millions and millions of dollars to spend on showbiz. So if you look closely, you'll notice that it's as if they are in politics every single day, every single hour, every single second. Taxpayers foot the bill for the Prime Minister to run up and down anywhere he wants to go. You're paying for it every day as a taxpayer. If you're a taxpayer here in Jamaica, you're paying for it. If Mr. Golden wants to run up and down, the taxpayers are paying for Mr. Golden to run up and down every day. And all of those persons you see in the Senate and in the House of Representatives and many other persons in state ministries and so on, they're being paid by taxpayers every single day to run up and down and to give you the impression that they're working on your behalf. Unfortunately, when you check the facts now, when you check out, for example, our exchange rate, you'll see that year after year, our dollar declines, which means our productivity is declining, our ability to produce and trade with the rest of the world at a level that would make our dollar commensurate with theirs is declining, because our productivity as a people is declining. If you look at our trade imbalance, you'll notice that we consistently import more than we export. If you look at our crime statistics, you'll see that while we have dips, we have many highs, and it continues to get higher and higher in general terms. So the fact of the matter is, those who are giving you all the showbiz that you're used to are destroying our country at the same time. Now let's compare that with the UIC. Mr. Wright doesn't get a cent of tax dollars. Mr. Nelson doesn't get a cent of tax dollars. Mr. Chase Neal doesn't get a cent of tax dollars. Director Chakanowski doesn't get a cent of tax dollars. So all the work we're doing for you is free. Now, of course, there are donors. We have approximately 300, 400, 500, 600 persons or more who give small donations here and there, small but significant. Just recently, for example, Miss Lorna, to help with Mr. Neal's campaign, she sent $70 US. VP Francis sent $25 US at one point. Director Chakanowski sent $25 US at one point. Different people sending a little bit here and there. Mr. O'Shane just sent $5,000 to help out with Mr. Neal's activities. We do not have the luxury of getting up every day as full-time politicians, as career politicians. So every morning, Mr. Nelson has to go to work. Mr. Wright has to go to work. Director Chakanowski has to go to work. I have to go to work. And unlike the Prime Minister, who seems to have a ton of time to run multiple businesses while being Prime Minister and while managing a so-called pandemic and while securing a PhD. I don't know. This is Superman. Because while Jamaica is in the midst of a massive pandemic for which we, the people, were under attack every single solitary day. Every day, you hear him making an announcement about what he's going to do to us, what part of us he's going to lock down, and how he's managing the counts and whatever. And they give us the impression that they are on top of things and working. And lo and behold, we're finding out now that he had a lot of time to monitor 28 or more bank accounts, moving millions of dollars around at a time when the rest of us are wondering if we'll be able to earn enough money to put food on the table the next day. Some of us were worried about having water in our pipes and hearing the health minister saying we need to go get the juke or we're not going to get any water. Many of us had our shops locked down for months while cruise ships were coming in and enjoying our country. And big supermarkets were able to open while we were shut down. Many people used to live by having them little dance and little party, everything shut down. Even now, you have in some communities, they can't fix crime, so what they do, they just shut down people events and say you can't have no events until we say so. So while they mash up your business, they just make pronouncement, and behind the scenes, they're moving millions of dollars between accounts. The UIC members, the UIC leaders don't have that luxury. We are finding precious time to build policies. Look at the policies we have made. The UIC, since we have come into existence, we have written a governance model that is the best in the world. No other country in the world has the superior system of governance that we have taken the time to carefully write down and analyze and design for you, the people. A system that ensures proper checks and balances. A system that will protect your sovereignty and basic human rights from being attacked or abused by government. We have developed a solid tax system that will simplify taxes, optimize our revenues, and ensure that you're getting value for money for every dollar you give. We have designed an education model called LEAP, Learning Enrichment Advanced Program, that will ensure that our children go beyond what we're now getting to learning how to manage their mind, body, and character in a way that will make them some of the brightest people in the world. We have come up with an economic model, including making Jamaica the organic food capital of the world. We have gone through and looked at how to develop a policy for water, food, and energy security. We have developed a model for how to revamp our public transportation system to make it more efficient and effective. We have designed a youth employment solution program to ensure every child that leaves our high school, if they're not going on to something very productive, they're going to be a part of an apprenticeship program that they're being paid to build, to develop the skills that they need to succeed. We have spent all this time without one single dime of taxpayers' money. So you may wish to question my presence or my doing this or doing that. But one thing is for sure, the evidence suggests that without $1 of taxpayers' money, we have been more there for you than those who have been taking trillions out of our economy in the name of being our government. So let us be sure that when we're critiquing, we do it in a way that truly looks at the various moving parts. And here's the reality. After 80 years of taking our tax dollars and profiling in front of us, they have not been able to fix the basic metrics. Our roads are still not where they should be. Our hospitals are still not where they should be. Our schools are way below where they should be. And our economy continues to be a master slave economy where the majority are sacrificed to benefit a minority. It is still the same way as colonialism, where the mass of people were being exploited to enrich a few. So NCB, for example, and other banks in Jamaica will continue to make billions while many Jamaicans are earning only $15,000 a week at minimum wage. Let me put it into context for you. Minimum wage in Canada is 5 times what minimum wage is here. In other words, if you are making the billions that some of these companies are making in Jamaica, you can hire 5 away for what a company in Canada would only hire 1 person to do. That's how they have devalued us as a people. And then talk about minimum wage. We don't want any more minimum wage. We want a new Jamaica where every Jamaican can earn to their maximum potential. And we want a system of education that will lift us up so that we have the capacity to compete with the best in the world. Right now, you have no idea how far behind we are as a people. We are graduating 82% of our high school graduates to be way behind the rest of the world each and every year. That means as the economy of the globe evolves, more and more of our people will be unemployed. And those who find employment because of the economics of demand and supply will find only low-paid employment. And so as a young person who the PNP is trying to reach right now and who the JLP has tricked up, all of you young people who have been fooled by those two parties, they have nothing planned for you except to leave you in destitution in the same way that they left your parents and grandparents in destitution. Go look at the homes that the majority of the people you know are living in. If the JLP and if the PNP could have given your parents and grandparents a better life, they would have. But they couldn't because they're not working for them. They're working for those who fund their parties and who own them, and that's the PSOJ oligarchs. In the same way today, they're only going to use you and then dispose of you and leave you on the hash heap of those who have given up on life or given up on politics because they know that it doesn't count. That's why the number of voters are going down. The older the people get and realize the trick, the more they're turned off from it. But being turned off is not enough. We have to turn on to fixing the problem. And the turning on is with the UIC. We are here to fix the problem. So I will always be standing by all of our candidates. It may not be visible because of our limitations, because we can't just run out there and go on big stage like the rest of you. We have to go to work. So when Mr. Neil, when election day comes, Mr. Neil had to go to work. He has lost about 3 days' pay already on the campaign. Lost. There's nobody to fill that in for him. Me can't give him the money. And we didn't raise any money to pay him for his lost wages. Mr. Neil had to pay $20,000, $30,000 for transportation. Who is going to give that to him? So what I'm saying to you is this, listen to me carefully. I'm saying we have the power but we have to realize that power. And to realize that power, we need three things. We need to volunteer our time, we need to volunteer our talent, and we need to volunteer our treasure. If all of we give a little bit of our time, a little bit of our talent, and a little bit of our treasure, we can elect 63 UIC MPs to completely transform Jamaica, give us a new constitution, a new system, new leadership, and make us a new Jamaica.
Just to add to what Mr. Patterson just said, and by the way, well said, as per usual, I just want to tie what you said with a comment here from Crystal G. Big up yourself, Mr. Patterson. All they do is come over here and steal your ideas. But I wanna, as the famous saying says, by their fruits you will know them. So as Mr. Patterson alluded, he's not being paid for this. None of us are being paid for that. He has taken his time out. He didn't have to come up with these ideas because he have to fork up. He was elected or he's an established part of an established party and you have to force up a manifesto. No. By their fruits you'll know them. This is someone who have taken a risk in life for the Jamaican people, for love for his country. He wasn't propelled into the prime minister position because of being part of a colonial party for 30, 40, 50 years. And you don't necessarily need to think about how you benefit the Jamaican people, because there's a system, and as Mr. Patterson said, a machinery that you perhaps believe will guarantee that you will get there, and you just need to formulate some quick ideas. No ideas of meaning or of substance to the Jamaican people, but just ideas basic enough to get elected. So by their fruits you will know them. A man who has sacrificed his life, build a political party to represent the Jamaican people with ideas of deep meditative thoughts, critical analysis and assessment of the need of the things that Jamaica needs to become a better country. By their fruits you shall know them. So thank you, Mr. Patterson. Thank you for all the sacrifices you have made. Thank you for all the great ideas you have formulated. And thank you for everything that you have done.
You know,
so far, not just for the
Mr.
UIC.
Nelson, I want to just make a point here. Now that you've mentioned the whole thing about ideas, because ideas are dime a dozen, you know, people come up with ideas all the time, and but very few people turn those ideas into reality. And many ideas are unsubstantiated. The UIC has not just put forward random, careless ideas like the two parties do. Every election they come out with new manifestos, and the reason they do that is every election they're making a new pitch to the Jamaican people. The UIC doesn't do that. Our manifesto has not changed. We have taken the time to understand what does it take to build. What does it take to build a prosperous nation that is strong and that is free? And so we have analyzed Jamaica and realized that what has kept us down as a people is the same thing that has kept down all the other former colonies that have followed the prescription of the colonial masters. The colonial masters told all the former colonies that the way to build a wealthy country is to divide yourself into 2 or more tribes and fight perpetually for scarce benefits in a system that by its design promotes corruption. And every country that has followed that prescription has failed. One former colony, Singapore, decided not to follow that prescription. And I took the time to carefully study what about that prescription they didn't follow. And then I look at other countries that are rich countries. You go to countries like, we all know the US of A, we know Britain, we know Germany, we know whatever. All of these other richer countries, the model that they followed to become wealthy was to engage in colonization, in exploitation, in enslavement of others, and finding ways to extract the wealth at a low price from other people and then sell it back at a value-added price globally or within their own local economy. So that's the model that some countries followed. My job, self-appointed, was now to understand what is the best model that Jamaica can apply to achieve what we need. We want to be, in my opinion, a united nation, not a divided one. These two parties have followed a model that divides us. They have followed a model that brings out the worst in us. My thought process was, we need a model that will unite us and bring out the best in us. So I set as the foundation of that planning process, what can we do? How can you design a country so that the governance of that country brings out the best in all our people? And that's the vision of the UIC, a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. So that's number one. As I studied carefully what we needed, we came to the conclusion that Jamaica needed to be a republic. And now I have to define what a republic is. Now, we have been told and misled that a republic simply means doing away with the monarchy and having a president. And you'll hear people talk about the presidential model. And they say that as if they know what they're talking about, when most of them don't, including those who are currently sitting on the Constitutional Reform Committee. They don't have a clue what they're talking about, most of them. There are some who are there to mislead them and guide them to a path where they want them to go to. But we know better in the UIC. And we know that a republic is a nation where the fundamental rights and freedoms of the people are 100% protected, not only from criminals who are unelected, but also from criminals who are elected, such as the government. And so we're going to protect your individual sovereignty at all costs. That's fundamental. Why are we going to do that? First, because as an individual, you have a right to be free. And that's what Nani fought for. That's what Sam Sharp fought for. That's what Bogle died for. That's what Marcus Garvey fought for. So we know we must honor our ancestors by fighting for what they really wanted, which was freedom, which was taken away from them for some 400 years. To this very day, we're still not free. So the UIC understood that. And so we said, listen, fundamentally, your life, your liberty, and your property must be protected. So we go another step further and say, wait a minute. Whatever system you come up with, we must find a way to address the wrongs of the past. And one of the wrongs of the past is that when they enslaved our people, they stole your labor, they stole our land, and they stole our education. They stopped us from learning. So three things. Any good government, have to make it a priority to restore the loss of your labor, the loss of your land, and the loss of your learning, because that's where your generational wealth was stolen. Why do you think so many people loved Michael Manley? Because when Michael Manley stood up to speak, he echoed these sentiments in his own unique, charismatic way. I can't speak like him. But the people could feel coming out of him an energy which suggested this man really wants to fix our core problem. The loss, they couldn't say it the way I'm saying it now, but they feel it. The loss of our labor, the loss of our land, and the loss of our knowledge or understanding. They have wiped out our ancestral knowledge. We don't even know how to use the herbs around us now to help ourselves. We're at the mercy of pharmaceuticals. We're at the mercy of their fake monetary system, which is robbing us daily. If we understood how much they're robbing us and how much they're killing us with their fake medicines, we would have risen up a long time ago, but we don't understand. Now, as I was saying, Manley echoed that spirit, but he lacked the competences to make it happen, and he was misguided by the same thing, which has trapped all other former colonies except Singapore, trapped in socialism. The idea of making us economic equals, which cannot happen. God did not make us to be economic equals. Otherwise, we would all be the same height, the same color, have all the same capacities. But no, instead, we're different. Not all of us can be a Usain Bolt. Not all of us can be a Shelley and Fraser. Not all of us can speak like Michael Manley. Not all of us have the wisdom of an Albert Einstein from a scientific perspective. The bottom line is, we are equal before the laws of God, but we're not here to be made equal by men. What we want is a system that treats us equally, equal opportunity. equal rights, equal justice, a safe environment, a clean environment, an orderly environment. And so the UIC spent the time, Mr. Nelson, Mr. Wright, to design a system of governance meticulously. And we call it a non-partisan constitutional republic. And those three words have important meanings. Non-partisan because we must unite our people again. We must bring our people together again by saying, this idea of being divided into partisan tribe is wrong, it's diabolical, it's counterproductive, it's wasting our energy, it's wasting our resources, and it's wasting our people away. So we must become a non-partisan country. Get rid of that colonial idea. And we say constitutional because your system must be based on a solid set of foundational rule of law that no politician can come and change easily. And the core of that is to protect our individual sovereignty in law, in the Constitution. Not the fake way they have done it now, in this one, where they put your rights and then they put conditions on which you may take away those rights. The UIC says, no, we must solidify your rights and make them off limits to everybody, the government and the non-government, the elected and the unelected, the uniformed and the non-uniform, because sometimes you have criminals in uniform, just like you have criminals who are elected. So you must have a constitutional basis for your country that is above and beyond the whims of men. Your foundational rights must be solidified, unchallenged, untested, never to be in any way tampered with by those you elect. That's constitutional. And it must be a republic, because a republic, unlike a monarchy, unlike a constitutional democracy, a republic says your fundamental rights are sacrosanct, they're sacred, never to be touched. So like if you ever have another pandemic of any sort coming out, the government would never have the power or authority to mess with your right to tell you that they want to inject you against your will. You're mad? Never. Your body is your temple. Your body is a sacred space. And that's why we said, my body, my choice. So the UIC spent the time to design a governance model that pulls on the best from all the countries around the world, and then level on top of that the fundamental feature of protecting your sovereignty. So we'll have the best education policy, like Singapore, to make sure that we have the best teachers for the early childhood level. Master's degrees teaching your basic school children, not persons who are not equipped and trained to teach children. We want the best. We want to make sure at the beginning stage, even before you're born, we want to make sure your mother and your father have been so educated that they know how to eat, how to sleep, what to drink, so that that little fetus inside of you have the best chance possible to come out and be better than Albert Einstein. If we don't pay attention to our human capital, we're destroying ourselves. And before you know it, you live in a country where you are just a tenant. And it's happening right now before our eyes. Right now, more and more of Jamaica is being owned by foreign interests. In a few years, downtown Kingston will be wiped out. You'll see massive skyscrapers owned by foreign interests. And the people you see there right now will be moved out and marginalized and pushed out to live on the fringes. While you see wonderful lights and music and stuff, but not for we. Not for the mass of people now who are downtrodden, who are now considered inner city residents. That's where Jamaica is heading. Our beaches will be captured. The worst will be available for us, and the best will be separated for the use of others. Our farmers will be decimated as their lands become less and less fertile from government policy. Government policy is destroying our farmers. And when they're fully destroyed, we'll be importing more and more. And so our food, our organic food will be gone. Our water will be polluted as they dig out more and more of our bauxite and let out the sludge and pollute our underground water table, pollute our rivers, kill off our fish, our freshwater fish. kill off the livelihoods of those who depend on that, poison our communities and people who are depending on river water because they don't have proper running waters in their communities. They're poisoning our air, poisoning our land, poisoning our water, and giving us cancers that we don't even know where it's coming from because it's a slow killer. You don't see it immediately. You're being poisoned by these companies that tell you that they're investing in your country, but the poison is happening slowly. And finally, you go to the hospital and they cut you up and do all kind of stuff and whatever, and you have no idea that it's government policy allowing bauxite mining to mine out your country and poison your rivers, poison your soil, and get rid of your biodiversity. So we, the UIC, understand these things. And so we have spent the time developing policies and programs and plans. They're not just ideas. When Mark Golding steals them, he's only stealing the talking points. He only wants to talk to you, say things to you, so that you say, oh, that sounds good, and go vote for him. But him not going to do nothing for you. When Andrew come and talk it out and tell you the nice words that he has borrowed from the UIC, it's only to fool you up again. Remember? Edward Siaga said money go and jingle in your pocket. Well, right now, that's all it is. Remember they promised you back then, deliverance is near. Where's the deliverance today? They told you to log on to progress. Where's that progress? The current prime minister promised you to move you from poverty to prosperity. He never tell you, same didn't mean you. He has moved from poverty to prosperity. His family has moved from poverty to prosperity. He has a bigger house now than he could ever have imagined. He has more assets now than he could ever have imagined. Whole heap of money now. But what about you? You can't even afford a house. You can barely manage your car payment if you have a car. You're struggling. You buy the car and you can't even pay to maintain it. Every minute the shocks mash up, the wheel mash up because of their policy affecting your road. You can't fix your roof. You got the house from your grandmother or grandparents and you can't fix that roof. It's still the same whole roof on it. And the piece of board on it are rotten out after 25, 30, 40 years and you can't fix it. You can't afford the roofing to go up there. Not even zinc you can afford. The wall a crack, you can't mend it. The tile broke out, you can't fix it. The plumbing system needs to be repaired, you can't touch it. The electrical wiring is eroding, you can't fix it. But you're running up and down for GLP and PNP. You're running up and down for your own destruction. You may not believe me now, but after me long gone, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when you have now forgot about me and forgot about the UIC, God is going to bring back to your memory this discussion. They're going to say, Rotted, you know, said this Patterson that I talk about. See it you now? Now you're no longer 25. You're now 35 or 45 or 55. And you realize what a waste of time. How you have wasted your life supporting PNP, wasted your life supporting GLP, when you could have get up and stand up and say, you know what? Let us give ourselves a fighting chance by joining, volunteering, and paying my dues in the UIC so we can have 63 candidates that will stand up for we the people, and create one Jamaica, united, strong, and free. Back to you, Mr. Nelson.
Very powerful, Mr. President, and thank you for that explanation of the Republic and other issues, and these are the issues that affect us Jamaicans. Donovan Hoylett said, Mr. President, you're good, you really can speak, but I think the real problem is that them say we can't teach old dog new tricks. Well, Donovan, the media labeled the UIC as a minor party, and I want to tell them and everybody else that pretty soon the UIC will move from minor to critical, because the UIC is the only hope for Jamaica. Mr. Wright, I'm going to give you the final words.
You know, I listened to what would you call it now? A video from one of the colonial party leaders where he parroted what his party is going to do, what his party should have done. But in a sense, most of it was him regurgitating and redressing what the UIC has said. And one thing stood out while Mr. Patterson was talking. And I remember when the UIC advised the people, because the UIC, when I joined, the UIC was still formulating its land policy. And when we put that out in, I think it was 2021, Mr. Patterson?
Yes.
We put that out in 2021. It created panic in the two colonial parties. And they hurriedly, with their media cronies, grabbed that idea, parsed it up, and shared it amongst them. And we hear it all over the place. So much so, Mr. Patterson said we're going to stop sharing our plans out in public. But I'm glad to see that has changed. But the point I'm making is this. It was always happening then, and it will still happen now. But it's critical for the people to realize that they're being tricked. Because we see where, for example, the NHT that is compulsory to all does not benefit all. What can be a bigger lie? All right? And I know we don't have the time to go down that entire rabbit hole. So I'll say to Jamaican that the UIC is here for you. And you have to be here for the UIC. You have to be present. There will be distractions. There will be subversions. There will be even sedition. Strong word. But if you want to see a change, you have to do something different. And I'm old enough to have lived through 18, almost 20 odd years of PNP. I was fortunate to be born at a point where, things are transitioning from the destruction to the economy by the JLP only to move into the destruction by the PNP and now back to the destruction by the JLP. So I've not seen those prosperity. I remember when a half a loaf of bread was $10. I remember that. You understand? I can remember those days. And I pay for a whole loaf now $1,000, literally. And it's half this. It's literally half the size of what a whole loaf used to look like back in the day. I was a bigger child, so I get to go to the shop, so I know those prices. Okay, I remember when you had to buy feminine hygiene product to get a tin of milk. I remember those days. Right? So despite what they have said, I know. I remember the Iran-Contra scandal when Jamaica became world famous for having the world's most corrupt politicians or joined the league of corrupt politicians. Okay? And I see the kind of privateering that happens where politicians now retire, own hundreds of acres of prime real estate on either ends of the island. And they know that development is taking place. And that's why we need to look at that Integrity Commission report, because you'll see investments by the Prime Minister in certain class of assets that comes from insider trading. And, there was an interesting debate, and I don't know if I shared it with Mr. Patterson, that happened in the US, and I won't go down that too far, where they're debating whether or not politicians that have these insider knowledge should be allowed to invest. Okay? Because they're making certain decisions. So when they make these decisions, is it in the interest of the country or in the interest of their pockets?
That's fraudulent. It's fraudulent. How can you be in a position of key information and get to trade on that information prior to the rest of the nation becoming aware? You have to have blackout periods. So your politicians should not be allowed to trade in anything that they are privy to prior to the public becoming aware of whatever it is. So let's say there's going to be a new development in a part of Jamaica that, the Prime Minister, whoever would have been involved in that discussion, and they know what's coming and they're a part of whatever. If you go and suddenly, buy up prime land in that area, knowing that a major thing is going to happen, then you're being given an advantage ahead of the very people you're supposed to be representing. So you're not representing the people, you're representing yourself. And that's what the Prime Minister and many others. How can the Prime Minister be doing Forex trading when you're the Prime Minister? You cannot do Forex trading when you're the Prime Minister, or a Minister of Government, or a member of the finance committees of any level at all, or a part of the banking. You cannot be doing Forex trading. And our Prime Minister has benefited from Forex trading. I worked with companies here in Jamaica where I have had to forecast the exchange rate. And it's based on the exchange rate forecast that you set certain prices and so on. Now, if I am forecasting, he knows already What, for example, if the Bank of Jamaica is going to dump certain amount of money into the market to stabilize or to push the dollar in one direction, you're going to know that ahead of the rest of us. You are then having an advantage. You're putting the rest of us at a disadvantage, and you're having an insider advantage. This is fraud and should not be allowed.
Here's a better question.
Yes.
Would someone with that knowledge delay market intervention so they can speculate even further?
Absolutely.
So we have to be aware of those things.
And that's why they tell us that the Bank of Jamaica is now independent, which is complete baloney. What they've done is they have removed the Bank of Jamaica from the direct control of the government of Jamaica to direct control of the global banking cartel and elites. But the government side still remains an insider in terms of insider trading. So while the Jamaican people have lost control of their bank and their banking sector, and soon over the entire financial sector, because they're now moving to pass laws to completely put everything under the Bank of Jamaica, which is therefore putting our entire financial sector under the control of outside forces with their proxies here in Jamaica. This is dead serious. I wish I had the time and the space and the energy and the platform to really educate Jamaicans on how each and every single solitary day, your government, those you have allowed to sit in the seat of parliament, they are working against your interest in terms of monetary policy, fiscal policy, regulatory rules around finance and banking, and around even market forces. They're working diligently against you. That's why you can never make it. You can never invest enough to make sure that your retirement is secured. If you don't have the knowledge of some of us, I am very blessed, Mr. Neil and Mr. Wright, for having studied finance as my major, and not just studied it the academic way. I have stepped out of the academic and gone into those who they don't want you to hear from. I've listened to other people who they don't want, Murray Rothbard and others. I've spent the time studying from Milton Friedman and others, who really have given some other perspectives. And because of that, I have a wide understanding of financing, financial markets, and government. They know that the majority of us don't know that. So the majority of Jamaicans are at the mercy of these wretched policies that is wiping out your pension fund, the value of your purchasing power, wiping out your chances of being able to live a decent life or ever achieving financial freedom, wiping out the future of your children, enslaving you to debt. They're not, mortgages have moved from, remember, I don't know if you know this, Mr. Nelson, but there's a time when a mortgage was no more than 2 to 3 times your earnings, your income, 2 to 3 times, which means you could pay it off normally within 5 to 10 years. Now mortgages are 30 years and going even beyond that, because they're entrapping you. And they know you don't understand, because they make sure that the people don't understand money, don't understand economics. And so they just fool you up, and you just buy into it and go and sign your death sentence on that line for the mortgage. And for 30 years,
I gotta say this for the young working professionals. Listen,
yeah.
I remember when I just joined UIC and we used to do lives together. And I remember you and I doing a live about the banking system. I distinctly remember that because I was wearing a red shirt at the time. I was at work. It was on the periphery of the pandemic. And you did sound the alarm about the banking changes that are affecting us now. All right? But here's the other one. You spoke about the mortgage, and I also remember us doing a live, and we touched on mortgages. We didn't go into it in depth, but we touched on mortgages. Mm-hmm. And we see last year changes in the NHT through influence from the Prime Minister that literally are setting us up for a subprime collapse of the Jamaica
absolutely
mortgage institutions, and nobody noticed. And right now there are 3 NHT developments on the market right now, and that is in addition to about 4 that I know of, 4 private developments that I know of. All are priced at the multi-billion-dollar mortgage over 25 to 30 year period.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what that does, the new system that NHT is using, right? And they're very efficient at it, because I'm literally, anyway, let me not get into that part. But They're setting us up, and I've been warning my elders, I've been warning friends that you need to be aware of this and make sure of what you're doing. And I mean, I can't take out the program with this. We probably need to do a live on it. But
So what they've done, they have, and sorry, Mr. Nelson, we're killing you with it. But what they've done, you've heard me say this before, right? But what we're living in is a modern form of slavery, because what they're ensuring happens, right? The vast majority of us will live and die poor. Even if you bought that house, what do you spend your time doing? You spend, so you finish, let's say you went to college, you went to university, and you come out at 25 years, okay? Then you work for about, let's say work for five years. Let me be kind. You work for 5 years and get yourself a little established and build up your deposit, your down payment. So you're now 30 years old, and you take out a mortgage, a 35-year mortgage, okay? You're now 30. You're 65. If you were to pay that mortgage on the plan that they give you and just pay your monthly payment, you get to the end of that, if you're lucky, at age 65. Now, all of your earnings, all of your money has gone to the bank as a mortgage, paying off the principal and interest on that mortgage. Nothing is left for any serious investment for your future, for your retirement or anything, right? Nothing is left.
Here's the underhanded part now.
Yes.
That will drive his family into bankruptcy. The new mortgage changes that have come on stream, where you are now not processing an NHC mortgage. They haven't said that to you. They say, you can now get twice the amount if you go to a financial institution.
Yes.
When you go to the financial institution, yes, they qualify you for an NHC mortgage, but they buy out NHT as soon as you sign that paper.
Absolutely.
Right?
So it's no longer NHT.
Exactly. So now you are stuck with a regular commercial mortgage at a massive interest rate for multi-billions of dollars over a 35-year period, which takes you to retirement.
And remember, and that mortgage resets every 5 years or so.
Correct.
So you might get it today. Let's say it's 7.5% or 6.5% today. In 5 years' time, it may now be 12.2%. Another 5 years, it may be.
You remember a few months ago, people were crying that their mortgage rate just suddenly increased, and they didn't know why, and they were facing bankruptcy, and they're asking for the government to intervene. That's exactly what happened, and that was just on the small scale.
And they will repossess, Mr. Nelson. They will then come and repossess your house, just like they did with FinSac. Remember with FinSac, what they did was to drive up interest rate, which made it impossible for most small and medium enterprises to service the big loans they had. They took those loans out, not expecting that their government was going to kill them by creating a high interest rate regime that drives up the price of borrowing to the point where they could no longer service those loans, and then now collapse them into bankruptcy and take away their collateral assets, their homes, their land, their business assets, and then sell them at deflated prices to their selected few, who then made them wealthy and completely wiped out all of these small Jamaican operators. The same thing is going to happen in the housing market again when they're finished. But we have really extended our time, Mr. Nelson. Sorry about that.
No. Logics and evidence is powerful points. Definitely, the discussion can go on and on and on and on and on. But yes, you are right. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you everyone who participated. Really, it was a good discussion, strong discussion. I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody learned a lot, and I hope the entire Jamaica learned from us. Thank you, Mr. President Joseph L. Patterson. Thank you, Mr. Winston Wright. I really appreciate the participation from all of us. It was a good one, guys.
Good night.
And congratulations, Mr. Neil, for
a
great job done. And as Mr. Patterson says, all of those who supported you and all who will support in the future.
Heroes them all. But I'll just ask before the live end, just click on the like. All right? Just click on the like before the live end, please.
Yes. Like, subscribe, share, comment, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Take care.
Thank you, guys.
Bye-bye.